I call to order the Gladstone City Council meeting for November 10th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Good evening, everybody. Per the Governor's Executive Order 20-16 regarding compliance with Oregon's public meeting laws, the City of Gladstone is abiding by social distancing requirements during the coronavirus pandemic. This City Council meeting will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. The Zoom access instructions can be found on the meeting agenda. Members of the City Council, staff, and the public all have access to this call. Public comment requests were accepted prior to noon today and were to include your topic and phone number. Tonight, we will begin by introducing our new Public Works Operations Manager, Darren Canaparoli. Hopefully I pronounced your last name right, Darren. If not, let me know. Our consent agenda includes approval of the October 13th, 2020 meeting minutes, approval of the September bank balances, budget report for periods ending September 30th, 2020, approval of the September check register, legal costs on projects, and the department head monthly reports for October of 2020. Our regular meeting agenda includes Ordinance 1506, amending Title II, Chapter 2.10 of the Gladstone Municipal Code, also referred to as the GMC, revising boards, commissions, committees generally, and removing Title II, Chapter 2.50, which is the Library Advisory Board. An intergovernmental agreement, also referred to as an IGA, between the City of Gladstone and Clackamas County Water and Environmental Services, also referred to as WES, for repayment of the I&I Identification and Rehabilitation Program. I&I is the Stormwater Inflow and Infiltration. Resolution 1184, condemning violence and racism directed at Black African Americans and all people of color and affirming the City of Gladstone's commitment to equity, and City Attorney Performance Evaluation Process. Tammy, could you please call the roll?
Councilor Ripley.
Yes.
Councilor Neese.
Present.
Councilor Tracy.
Present.
Councilor Reisner.
Here.
Councilor Todd.
Here.
Councilor Mercero.
Here.
Mayor Stemple.
Here, thank you. So we're going to start with the presentation, introduction of our new Public Works Operations Manager.
Thank you,
Are you
Mayor.
going to do that, Jim?
Yes, Public Works Director Jim will do that.
Good evening, Mayor
Did I say
and City.
Operations Manager? Did I say Public Works Director? I said Operations Manager, right? Okay.
Yes, you did.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and City Council and citizens. Tonight, I want to introduce you to Darren Canaparoli. He's the city's Public Works newest employee. He's our operations manager. As you recall, going through the last budget process, with all the projects and stuff we got going on, that we felt that this was a key position to get on to help get some of our projects done. So we are really happy and excited to have Darren on board. And if Darren would like to say anything, you're more than welcome, Darren.
Thanks, Jim. Looking forward to working with everybody. Kind of excited, and new challenges are always welcome. So thank you for letting me into your team.
Would any of the counselors like to say anything?
Just welcome. Glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
So have you started working yet? Will there be a chance we could run and meet you in the near future?
Yeah, I started last Monday, and been there since. So yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. That'd be great.
Welcome aboard, Darren. This is Councilor Mercero.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be seeing you a lot. Anybody else? All right, we'll move on then. Thank you, Darren. Are there any agenda additions or corrections?
Thank you, Mayor. There is one amended agenda item, and that is item number 9. The resolution number 1184, a resolution condemning violence and racism, has been amended, and I sent that to you this afternoon. It's also posted on the city's website for anybody that might be participating in the meeting tonight and would like to look to see what changes were made to that resolution.
All right, thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Do we have any discussion? Councilor Mercero?
I just wanted to make a motion to accept the consent agenda 1 through 6.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Counselor Neese.
Motion was made by Councilor Mercero and seconded by Councilor Neese. Do we have any discussion? Questions, concerns? All right, Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Neese,
Present. Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, consent agenda's been passed. Correspondence, I show none, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so a couple things before we start. First, for those folks that would like to speak, the deadline to accept comments was noon today. And as a reminder, we allow 3 minutes for public comments unless there are special circumstances and additional time was approved beforehand by staff. Second, as I do before every meeting, I would like to say a few words regarding the City Council. The most important limitation we have here is that we're representing the citizens of Gladstone, not our own personal agendas and beliefs. There have been many times when a decision being made doesn't align with what we would like personally, but have made a decision based on what is best for the city as a whole. That doesn't mean our personal beliefs have changed, just that the city's needs were more important. As we discuss and consider matters, there are laws and rules we have to use as the basis of our decisions. These start at the federal and state level, then they filter down to our city's comprehensive plan, city charter, codes, and ordinances. We do not have the luxury of randomly making decisions, but instead have to be consistent and take a path that is defensible. We appreciate you taking the time to call in and participate in this process. I believe that we will have everybody's phones muted until it's your time to speak, and at that time, Tammy will unmute you. If you are not unmuted, please do so. So if we're not able to mute it, just let us know. My goal is to keep this meeting respectful and engaging, and I hope all of you can help us do that. So first item, number 7 on our regular agenda, is an ordinance 1506, amending Title II, Chapter 2.10 of the Gladstone Municipal Code, again referred to as the GMC, revising boards, commissions, and committees generally, and removing Title II, Chapter 2.50, Library Advisory Board. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This ordinance is before you tonight because there's been a great deal of progress being made on the new Gladstone Library. As you recall, back in November of 2019, the City Council entered into a library construction and operation agreement with Clackamas County. As part of that agreement, Clackamas County has taken over the operations of the library, and they've agreed to create a new library board of trustees to be the governing body over that Gladstone Library. There is a stipulation in our agreement that the City Council will dissolve our current library board, which is why this is before you tonight. And I will say that prior to this meeting, I was on the Gladstone Planning Task Force meeting, and they did a recount that they have had 18 meetings in the last year and a half. There's a tremendous amount of volunteers in our community that are working on this new library. Because we're dissolving this group does not mean that we don't care any longer. It's just that now their focus is going to be on the design and getting ready to construct the new library. So this is kind of a bittersweet moment. And the ordinance before you tonight needs to be approved in order for us to go ahead and dissolve the Gladstone Library Board.
All right, do we have any questions for staff? Counselor Mercero? Counselor Mercero, there you go.
Sorry,
Do you have any questions or concerns?
no questions.
All right, Counselor Neese.
No, I have no questions.
Thank you. Counselor Ripley.
I have no questions.
Counselor Todd.
I have no questions. I just want to thank everybody for all the work they put in to get us to this place. So, but no questions.
Counselor Reisner.
No questions, but I would like to, as Councilor Todd just alluded, there's a lot of people have been involved in this, as you alluded to, many meetings. Mitzi Olson, the library director, has been burning a candle at many ends as she's brought together two libraries, buildings into one, library with staff and programming. And her boss, I believe, is Laura Zittner. Appreciate what the county's been doing. And then also want to thank the library board members for over the last few years. Well, I'd say like 31 that going back that far. I appreciate Tammy Bannock doing a little research that has helped over the years, because it's been at least 30 years that I've been here in town talking about trying to get a new library. And so I'd like to give them kudos for being part of this moving forward, even though, back in the day, they were just trying to keep the library going and not falling down, literally. So I'd like to take just a minute to name them off real quick. Brian Marone, Barbara Ketchever, Chris Wagonot, Judith Irvin, who went on to become a city councilor, Walter Whitney, Cicely Sullivan, Vernon Weiss, Kimberly Kent, Herb Beals, who, our official and unofficial historian, was on the library board for many years, wrote some great books about Gladstone, Luke Bushman, Lori Funk, Karen Force, Ann McAllister, Lou Welch, Jan Anderson, Judith DeVillers, James Buzen, Kari Martinez, who also went on to be a city councilor, Julie Schmidt, Moma Escarvera, Cynthia Studenbrock, Susan LeBlanc, Bonnie Beazle, Deborah Mead, Denise Hines, Sean McDonald, Katie Lewis, Stephen Hackett, Beverly Chase, Gary Wachowski, Libby Spencer, Deanna Robles, Margaret Bartolin, Bryce Colson, Michael Melch, Natalie Smith, and Nancy Eichstead. And a lot of these people are still involved with the foundation and our library. They haven't just vanished. They're very dedicated and they've been on, some of them are on the task force that Jackie just mentioned. And so it's, we might be, as it mentions, closing the library board officially now, but I think myself, we're opening a new chapter for the Gladstone Library. And I'm hoping that within the next 7, maybe 10 years, we'll have it back. And it'll be the, under city operation in the future. I mean, that's a given. It will be back. It's just the timing. So thank you. So I totally support this.
Thank you. Counselor Tracy?
I'm just going to echo what Counselor Reisner said. So much appreciation to the folks who are community members who participated in the process. And I do agree with you, Counselor Reisner. I hope that we can bring it in-house at some point.
All right, and I just want to thank the board. 3.5, almost 4 years ago, this was an incredibly contentious situation that our library was in. And through all of that, this board has stuck with it, championed it, gotten a little bit outside of their comfort zone to get us where we are today. And they were an incredible group of people. And I hope that they want to continue being a part of this when we relook at it in January and see what kind of a group we want moving forward to represent our piece of the library district. So thank you very much. Any other discussion? Any questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I would. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 1506, amending chapter 2.10 and 2.50 of the Gladstone Municipal Code, revising boards, commissions, and committees generally, and removing the library advisory board.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Motion was made by Counselor Reisner and seconded by Counselor Tracy. Do we have any further discussion? I don't see any hands. So Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Aye.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. Ordinance 1506 has passed. Thank you.
Uh,
Next item, number 8.
Sorry, Mayor, we need
Yes.
a second reading of the
Oh,
ordinance.
do we on this one?
Yes. It was passed unanimously, so now we can do the second reading in the same night.
All right. I didn't realize that we had to do a public hearing on this one or a second reading. All right. Would someone like to, all right. Well, then we're going to do the second reading. Do we have any further discussion on this? Counselor Mercero?
No questions.
Counselor Neese?
No, I'm fine with it.
Counselor Ripley?
I'm fine.
Counselor Todd?
No, thank you.
Counselor Reisner?
No.
Counselor Tracy?
No further questions.
Would someone like to make a motion, please?
I'll be glad to make a motion to approve ordinance 1506, amending chapter 2.10 and 2.50 of the Gladstone Municipal Code, revising boards, commissions, and committees generally, and removing the library advisory board.
I'll
Do I have a
second.
second?
Second.
Motion was made by Counselor Reisner, seconded by Counselor Tracy. Do we have any further discussion? I don't see any hands. Tammy, could you do roll call vote, please?
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Aye.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, second reading for ordinance 1506 has passed. So we're done with that one. Move on to item 8, which is an intergovernmental agreement, also referred to as an IGA, between the City of Gladstone and Clackamas County Water and Environmental Services, also referred to as WES, for repayment of the I&I Identification and Rehabilitation Program. And again, I&I stands for Stormwater Inflow and Infiltration. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to have the Public Works Director, Jim Wynot, talk you through this. This is actually an excellent project for us to be highlighting tonight. When all those people ask you, where's their money going when you raise my utility rates, this is an excellent example of the progress being made in Gladstone. And we appreciate that Jim has taken the lead on this. So Jim, go ahead and explain your project.
Thank you, Jackie, Mayor and City Council. This is as Mayor mentioned, this is an IGA, which is an intergovernmental agreement between Gladstone and Clackamas County Water Environment Services, which I'll refer to as WES. Basically, this IGA is an agreement between the city and the county that we will reimburse them for our share of the I&I study, which our total equals $461,822. The city attorney has reviewed this agreement, and the comments were incorporated. A little history of how the city got here. After several years of the city's raw sewage overflowing into the Clackamas River and receiving several fines from DEQ, DEQ and the city got together and came up with an agreement, which we'll refer to as a MAO, which is a mutual agreement and order, in the spring of 2019. And this mutual agreement and order, which is attached in your packet, is to help the city work towards addressing the city's infrastructure issues that are contributing to the overflows, and also to help prevent future fines and possible litigation that the city may receive from overflowing raw sewage into the river. To date, the city has completed compliance orders 1 and 2 of the MAO, which are basically an I&I study planning, and we also hired the consultants. That was the compliance orders 1 and 2. Compliance order number 3 is to complete the I&I study, which is what we are in the process of doing right now, and we have until August of 2022 to complete this project. WES and the city joined forces to conduct an I&I study because they also have some areas that they need to do a study, and this is a big savings for the city. It takes advantage of the administrative efficiencies and also the economies of scale. So this is overall, it's over $1 million project. The city is able to fund this project, as Jackie mentioned, with the revenues being generated from our phased-in rate increases that the city council adopted late last year. Where we're at with the project right now, as many of you may have seen in our newsletters and possible door hangers, is we completed the smoke testing, and out of that smoke testing, there were 200 issues identified in that. And it was quite interesting to see that. I don't know if any of you got a chance to see that, but it was quite interesting to see smoke coming out of gutters on houses and out of catch basins in the street, out of people's yards, out of cracks in the road. You know, those are all issues where when we have a heavy rain event, water gets into the sewer system, it overflows the sewer system, it can't handle it, and it just overflows into the river instead of into people's basements or into their houses. So it's, that overflow is there for a reason, but we don't want to use it if we don't have to. We just started this week the closed circuit TV in of the lines. That's the next part of the process. This will take the majority of the winter to do. And how that process is, we go in and we clean the line so you can see it, and then you go in behind that with a TV truck and you pretty much TV every line so you can see if there's infrastructure issues. So with that, yeah, we're asking council to approve letting me sign this contract, this IGA with the county, so we can reimburse them for the work we're doing. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right, let's mix it up so I don't pick on Tom first every time. Councilor Tracy, do you have any questions or concerns?
I don't. However, Director, why not, when you're explaining in the staff report, you get 2/3 of the city that would be benefited by this. Is that correct? Can you explain to the public and to us about that 1/3 of the city that wouldn't be, and why?
I will gladly pass that along.
Yes, absolutely. So 2/3 of the city of Gladstone gets its sewer treated by Clackamas County Water Environment Services. The other third of the city gets treated by Oak Lodge Water Services. And that part of the city is typically the north end of the city, and up on top of the hill on the north end of the city, about 1/3. From about the high school north ish. I mean, it wiggles through there a little bit, but that's why it's not the whole city, because we actually send our sewage to 2 different treatment plants.
Thank you for that explanation. I'm sure that others are wondering about that as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Before I hit up the next counselor, I just want to remind people to please mute their phones or mute their computers so that we don't hear you in the background. Counselor Reisner.
No, just thank you. I know this has been in the works for quite a while, so appreciate that it's finally come to us. And yeah, it was interesting to see just a block west of me on West Clarendon, smoke coming out of the middle of the street. But it threw a crack. So it was, yeah, it was, so knew you guys were doing good. So thanks.
Counselor Todd.
Yeah, I just was more wondering, just for my own information, driving around and seeing the smoke coming up actually in people's yards. So were those homeowners then notified that they have some sort of a crack? What was the procedure with that if it wasn't on the main sewer line but was coming up on private property?
Yeah, so if they were home, they were notified and explained what they found out there. And at the end of this report, we will also have documentation, and we'll be able to make contact again with the homeowners, especially if they weren't home at the time of the test. So yeah, the plan is to put this report together in total, and then go out and work with the homeowners on their private line to also fix this problem, because it benefits the whole city.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Counselor Ripley.
I have no questions.
All right, Counselor Neese.
Just a comment, I really appreciated the fact that you saw signs around the city letting people know what was happening and what was going on, and I thought that was really a good way to connect, to make them aware.
Counselor Mercero.
Good job, your director. Why not? Appreciate it's taken many years to get to this point, and it's on the way now.
Well, it was amazing to see all those signs all over and how many people were still freaking out thinking that there was fires. It was, yeah, we had a lot of signs.
Yes, and thank you to our fire department for dealing with us during this process. They did receive quite a few calls, but we did keep them in the loop on the process.
Yeah, and it's nice to finally see us moving forward, doing things that are proactive instead of reactive, though this is kind of both. And that we're able to have that relationship with Wes to help carry the burden, financial burden for this project. That's good to know that we have those strategic partnerships in place. So thank you for that, Jim. Any other questions or concerns? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the city, the current Public Works Director, to enter into and sign the attachment agreement, IGA.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Counselor Neese and seconded by Counselor Tracy. Do we have any further discussion? I don't see any hands, so Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Aye.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Aye.
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. So the IGA, the agreement, or the approval to sign the contract has been approved. Thank you, Jim, for all your hard work on this one. Next is item 9, resolution 1184, condemning violence and racism directed at Black African Americans and all people of color, and affirming the city of Gladstone's commitment to equity. This is something that Counselor Tracy asked to be put on the agenda, and I want to kind of give a disclaimer, and that I spent the afternoon in the hospital with my father, so I did not know about the amendment until I got here this evening, so I have not had a chance to see it or read it. So, Councilor Tracy.
Thank you. Staff, do you have anything to add first to this?
I can prelude into this a little bit of background. So in July, the Gladstone City Council held a listening session to hear concerns from the community regarding racial equity and social justice facing our city and country. Since then, Gladstone has taken steps to understand and respect diversity in the workplace and community, and I've kept the City Council briefed on that. Specifically, we implemented diversity, equity, inclusion training for all city employees, and we had some elected officials participate. And we've established a partnership with Clackamas County Inclusion Office and are leveraging that partnership with the Coalition of Communities of Color to understand and improve equity and inclusion efforts in Clackamas County. Councilor Matt Tracy did request that this be placed on the agenda, so I will go ahead and let you take it from here.
So to be frank, I don't have a lot to say about this because as I sit here, the words that really come to me right at the moment is it actually pains me to have to do this. And by that, I mean, I don't want to diminish the value of the proclamation and or the resolution, but I just wish that at this point in my life, I wouldn't have to act as a public official and talk about this at this level. I think you understand what I mean by saying that. However, this being the time, this being the case, I will go ahead and read through the resolution, and to the mayor, most of the amendments that were made were specifically as it addressed people of color, our Black citizens and our African American citizens. And there was some language that was inserted that was more tangential to marginalized and underrepresented communities that live in our city, whether persons of color or not, but this is primarily about people of color. So resolution number 1184 is a resolution condemning violence and racism directed at Black, African Americans, and all people of color, and affirming the City of Gladstone's commitment to equity. Whereas Black, African Americans, and all people of color continue to be marginalized and excluded from constructing and participating in the institutions that govern our society and the services upon which we depend to protect our health, safety, and well-being. And whereas the United States, the state of Oregon, Clackamas County, and Gladstone has been guilty of committing acts of oppression against Black and African Americans, and urgent progress must be made to achieve racial justice. And whereas incidents of violence and unconscionable racism directed towards Black, African Americans, and people of color is an outrage, and these acts represent a blatant disregard for the dignity and sanctity of human life. And whereas too many Black, African Americans, and people of color in our country live in fear of losing their lives because of the color of their skin. And whereas our nation's future well-being relies on a public system that confronts systemic bias, institutionalized racism, and supports efforts to ensure that Black, African American, and all people of color thrive in the communities where they live. And whereas the current movement for racial justice represents an opportunity for sustained commitment to creating a future that is more diverse and authentically welcoming to all, rather than maintaining the legacy of unequal opportunities and higher risk of violence for Black, African Americans, and people of color that has existed in this country. And whereas the City of Gladstone has a shared core value of equity and is committed to respecting every individual's right to dream and the right for their history and cultural heritage being celebrated while living in the City of Gladstone, now therefore, the City of Gladstone resolves as follows. It is declared that the City of Gladstone and all its staff join with America in sharing the shame, anger, and sorrow about the intolerable violence directed at Black, African Americans, and people of color. It is further declared, the City of Gladstone condemns the violent and disrespectful treatment of Black, African Americans, and people of color. Our organization does not and will not tolerate, nor accept in any way, treatment of Black, African American, or people of color that degrades their dignity or disregards their human life. It is further declared, the Gladstone City Council calls on elected officials and all government agencies to recognize the value and contribution of the lives of Black, African Americans, and all people of color to remove these barriers to greater equality and equity. It is further declared the City of Gladstone will review its policies and ordinances or any discriminatory impacts and practices and encourage other jurisdictions to do the same. It is further declared the City of Gladstone will engage in listening and learning opportunities with communities of color to learn of their experiences to better help in improving policies and practices that include but not limited to law enforcement, the justice system, economic disparities, educational disparities, and land use and transportation policies that displace communities of color and other underrepresented and marginalized communities disproportionately. This resolution is adopted by the City of Gladstone this 10th day of November 2020 shall be effective immediately. If it is indeed passed, I do believe we have a number of citizens who want to comment on this resolution.
Yes, I think we've got 10 people that are signed up to speak, and I'm okay with having them go now since we've got so many lined up, if that's all right.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have before we go to, which I generally feel that, citizens have priority over the council in public hearings and so on like that. But I do have a question for Councilor Tracy, if I may.
Sure.
So Councilor Tracy, I was wondering, notwithstanding with what you just read and the importance of it, were you aware that the council had decided several years ago not to do proclamations or resolutions?
No, and that council is not this council, but I appreciate that, Councilor Reisner.
Well, several of us are still here, and I feel that that's something that we, it's been a standing rule for several years. It's the reason why I didn't bring up a proclamation about ALS month in May or other important acknowledgements because of that decision that we made.
That's appreciated. If it's in, if I've been misguided and it's in the GMC.
No, it's not. No, it's not in the GMC.
Oh,
it was just a decision, and I think Councilor Mercereau can attest. It's probably not even in the council rules.
Yeah.
It was a decision made to not necessarily save our time, but that was part of it, but also save time of staff because these items can really be time consuming on their part, as found out today with the onslaught of people contacting staff to comment on this.
I appreciate your input on this. I don't think it's quite the same as many different proclamations that might be brought forward, and we're not really looking at a proclamation as much as making a resolution about the city identifying the need here. Again, I appreciate that. If it's not in the GMC or it's not in the council rules, then it really isn't guided by an ordinance or policy. And we are a different council, and over the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be many different people sitting in these seats. So though appreciated, I don't see this as just a proclamation. I think that this is the city coming to kind of a recognition. But I appreciate it, Councilor Reisner.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Councilor Reisner?
No, I was just curious if there's any other thoughts from our colleagues on this.
Well, I know when I first became mayor, the potential was there for this to become a proclamation and resolution factory. I was getting a ton of requests, and though all of them seemed very valid and very pertinent at the time, because of past decisions, weren't going to go down that road, but I understand where this is slightly different. My concern is that this is very exclusive instead of inclusive. And if we do this, which is fine, will we then reach out to the Me Too movement, the LGBTQIA+ group, the seniors that are being discriminated because of their age? I mean, there's a whole bunch of other groups that are being discriminated against as well and marginalized. And so are we going to then reach out to them to have similar proclamations or resolutions? It's just something to think about.
My answer to that is, as long as you keep getting it wrong, you got to try to make it right.
As long as we keep getting it wrong, we're going to have to make it right. All right.
But I'm not sure if it's wrong, but okay.
All right. So we'll go ahead and call up the speakers.
Sorry, Mayor. It seems that there's some
Yes.
other counselors that want to comment.
Yeah, I'd like
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry, Councillor Todd. Yes.
In June, we did a proclamation for the graduating class of 2020, correct?
Yes. Yes.
That
Yep.
was very important, and this
Yep.
is very important as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just saying, we just have not made a habit of doing that. That was a very unique circumstance, and it was not done lightly, for sure. But yes. Any other counselors? Councillor Mercero.
I believe, and I was involved in the agreement of the issue that Councillor Reisner was discussing, and I was part of the council at that time that helped make that decision. I do believe, however, that this is a bit different than a normal resolution in its magnitude. This is a huge subject, and to give everybody the dignity and respect they require, I believe this resolution helps do that. And I believe it should override whatever was said before.
All right, any other counselors? I was going to call up the speakers and then counselor could make more comments. Counselor Neese?
I agree with what Councilor Mercero said, but also with what Councilor Tracy said. Things change, people change, and we're going to have different councils. So, you know, we need to keep learning and moving forward. And yes, it's great that many years ago, or maybe just a few years ago, that was taken with the other counselors, but we have new council now. And there's going to be another new council coming up. In the next 2 or 3 years, we'll have more. So times are changing and we just have to move forward.
All right, any other counselor before we get on to comments from the audience? No, all right, Tammy, could you call them forward, please?
First one is Martine Klobentz. I apologize for that.
That's quite all right. It's Koblenz. Good evening, everyone. I'm Martine Koblenz. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a Gladstone resident. And I thank you all for the time to speak to you around about this resolution. This resolution is really, it's an acknowledgement of the 400-year legacy that we have as a country with regards to the treatment of Black and African American and people of color, our history of racial issues and racial injustice and racism in this country. And we have our own history here in Oregon and in this county. And so that how Councilor Mercer was saying, the magnitude of the work around addressing systemic racism, addressing issues around diversity and equity and inclusion for all people is so essential. And so I appreciate this resolution coming forward. I appreciate that what we're doing is that we're recognizing that there are a whole subset of folks who have been oppressed and marginalized for quite some time, and that we need to acknowledge that and address it. I really appreciate Jackie Betts' leadership in providing training for workforce equity. I appreciate this as a response to the listening session, a resolution as a response to the listening session. And I also really appreciate in the resolution that you are resolving to do something, that it's not just a proclamation, it's not just an acknowledgement, but it's resolving to do some action in response to the acknowledgement of the racial injustice and discrimination. And so specifically, the areas around looking at policy and ordinances, the area around engaging with community to better understand and listen to what community's experience is like. And we have Black, African American, and people of color who are also LGBTQ+, who are also older, who are also in part of those other identity groups. And so for me, it's not an exclusion of those groups, it's recognizing that we have intersectionality in our identity. But the one common thread throughout our history in this country, in this state, and in our county has been around racial identity, primarily, with all of those other identities as intersections. So I really just wanted to speak up to say how important it is that this resolution is coming forward, that it is in alignment with what's happening with Clackamas County, and it's in alignment with what's happening with other cities in our county. And I hope that Gladstone will continue to partner with Clackamas County and our surrounding cities so that we could be in alignment with one another and doing this really important work that's long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Leslie Myers. Leslie, you're muted.
Is that better?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to agree with what Martine just said. And I also want to include the racism, not just historically in our nation, in our state, in our county, but everybody here knows as a group that people have been hurt here in this town, in our city, because of racism. And that's from the listening session that we had, where so many people had the courage to speak out. So I fully support this resolution. We don't want more hearts to be hurt.
All right, thank you. Next.
The next is Angela Riley.
Hi, I would just like to encourage you all to please support this resolution and working towards creating more inclusiveness and diversity and equity in our city environment, in our leadership, and even future event planning in Gladstone. And I'm just really grateful to to Councilor Tracy for listening to us and listening to those in the community who've been asking for this and asking for this. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Kelly Cheney.
Hi, thank you. I always jot down something I'm going to say, and then I end up trashing it just to respond to other comments. So off the cuff here. It goes along with the first commentator as well. This is different than other marginalized groups. There is a danger that is current in this climate. People are emboldened to shout out racial slurs, to bash in windows in our community. Old people aren't followed at Safeway because they're old by security. but people of color are. They're afraid. And people in wheelchairs don't get bullied on social media. And maybe fat people, that maybe we should do a proclamation for them. No, I'm fat, but nobody on social media says, hey, let's drive up and down Kelly Street and make sure she knows that we're not okay with her fatness. It's totally different. And we're talking about a physical danger and something that's really hot right now. And that's why most of our surrounding cities have adopted something like this for the safety of the community. If we get to that level with one of these other groups, perhaps the LGBTQ plus group, then a proclamation would probably be in order as well for that group. But this is on such another level, it cannot be compared. And I hope for that reason it passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Sandy Dvorak. Hang on, Sandy, you're muted.
There. I double clicked instead of clicking. I'm a 42-year resident of Gladstone. I raised my children here. I worked here at the city library for 25 years. I have seen lots of things in this town, and one of the neat things recently has been the expansion of many more people of color, of orientation, of different nationalities and different ethnicities come to the city of Gladstone and find a home here. And I think that's an excellent thing. However, when they start having hurtful things happen to them, that is not a good thing. And that's something that our leaders need to stand up and say, we're not going to allow that to happen here, because this is not that kind of town. It doesn't need to be that kind of town. And unfortunately, our national climate has gotten very antagonistic recently, but that does not need to happen in Gladstone. This is Happy Rock. We can get along. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Next.
Next is Anissa Michaels.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a citizen of Gladstone, and I would like to speak to the support of the resolution 1184. Let me say that I am a person of color who was born in the United States, as were my parents, but I've experienced prejudice and mistreatment firsthand because I am Latina. I feel it is difficult for people who are not of color to fully understand something they have not experienced. The approval of this resolution is a start that can make a difference. You know, Christianity has a golden rule: treat others as you would be treated. And this rule is in the scripture of most religions of the world. And I ask you this: would you want to be treated, or want your children to be treated, in the way that Black human beings and other human beings of color have been treated for hundreds of years? It's something to think about, but I really think that it is time to move forward with this resolution and make a change that will make a difference.
Thank you. Next.
Mark Zimtbaum.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I would first of all like to thank everybody for their community service. A great community like Gladstone is really, based on the service of our city council, our mayor, our police chief, the librarian who spoke earlier, and everybody who works to make this place great. We moved here, 15 years ago. We've been raising a family ever since. We really love it here, and we feel included here and part of the community. And we just felt very strongly that we come out and urge our council to pass this resolution and have everybody feel included here as we do. And the next time we have a resolution like this that is going to open us up to more inclusion, then I'll be back and speak again. And there again, just thank you all for your service. And we do truly greatly appreciate that. And we hope that you do pass this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Anissa Hartman.
Good evening, everyone. Anissa Hartman. I use she, her pronouns. I want to first offer my gratitude and thanks to the council members that have pushed this forward and decided to stand up and acknowledge the damage of racism and recognize that remaining silent is no longer an option. Gladstone is not immune to racism. With the resolution, we have an opportunity to commit to real work that needs to be done to make this a racially equitable city. Systemic racism and institutionalized racism are deep-rooted, historic, and I know that these barriers will not be broken overnight. But this is our starting point in taking a stand against racial and social injustice. This deep-rooted history of systemic racism does impact how our city makes decisions. At the local level, I truly believe that we have the responsibility to commit to positive change and improve inclusion, access to opportunities, and quality of life for Black, African Americans, Indigenous, and all people of color. And tonight we have that opportunity to begin that change. You are all leaders of this city, and until we challenge these systems that allow racism to flourish, we will not be able to progress. So I hope you all recognize that you have a responsibility to advocate for this positive change and to demonstrate to your constituents and your areas of influence that the city of Gladstone is committed to racial equity. Passing this resolution, whether you want to believe it or not, will give people hope. It will show your traditionally marginalized and unheard community members that you care about their voice, that you recognize that they have lived and continue to live a life you will never understand, but that you are ready to listen with openness, humility, and respect. That we will continue to learn from each other and work towards making this beautiful city more united and diverse. So I hope you show your community members tonight that you hear them, you see them, and you stand with them. And I hope that this resolution gets passed. Thank you again for adding this to the agenda.
Mary Reich.
Oh, I'm Mary Reich. I've lived in Gladstone since the 80s. My kids graduated from high school here. I'm just now really getting into the systemic part of the racism that I had no idea about all of my life. I've lived with racism. I lived in a home with racists. I was, it was just, yeah. So I know we have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do, and I would love to have my city behind me. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have one more.
Mary Morfitt Brown.
Hi, this is Mary. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the indigenous inhabitants of Gladstone, the Clackamas and Malala and other tribes who lived here long before we did. I'd like to acknowledge them and their ownership of the land. I would also, second, I would like to thank the Gladstone City Council from the bottom of my heart for holding that listening session this past July, I think it was. I think we all learned an awful lot from that. A lot of things that surprised us, a lot of things we weren't aware of, and a lot of things we suspected but didn't know for sure. Because, let me get to my, oops, where'd it go? Get my crib notes here. There have been, we found out there's been multiple instances of racial bullying in the schools and on the streets. I've heard individually from people, usually young women of color, who have been terrified by guys threatening them from cars as they walk down the street. And I like the idea of having the proclamation in Gladstone because it provides some clarity when issues of discrimination arise. Many of us who have never experienced the kind of racism that we see today often don't realize the depth and the perversity to which it goes. And I think the safety in public places really is a function of government and a function of the council. I think we've learned a lot, and I think we're going to continue to learn a lot. And hopefully by approving this proclamation, we can be helpful in learning all sides of the issue and just kind of keep in the back of our minds that we have a lot of children in this community and the children are watching. This is how they learn. They learn from us. So thank you again for promoting this. I do hope it passes.
Thank you very much for all of the speakers. So I guess to go back to council and see if we would like to have further discussion on this issue, if we have any questions, concerns for staff. I do have a question for the attorney since this was amended. David, have you had a chance to review the amended language?
Hi, Mayor. Yes, we did have a chance to look at it when Jackie sent it out, and don't have any issues with it from a legal perspective.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go counselor to counselor to see if you've got any questions or concerns or questions for staff. Counselor Mercero?
I have no problem with the resolution. I fully support resolution 1184.
All right, Counselor Neese?
No, I have no questions, and I support it as well.
Counselor Ripley?
I have no questions.
Somebody's not muted. Could you guys make sure everybody's muted? Counselor Todd?
I guess I should unmute myself. I have no questions at this time, except for that I really like the addition of the review the policies. And I want to know sort of what we're thinking in regards to that. Like, I want to have an action plan if this is moved forward, because I really do like that verbiage a lot more than the original one. So.
Well, we do have our strategic planning session in January, which that's probably where the more detailed action plan would be set. So that's something to think about over the next month. We can come up with some ideas then. Councilor Reisner?
No questions, but one thing that several of the speakers brought about, and Councilor Todd just mentioned about an action plan. I think one thing that I challenge those that spoke tonight and also last month, that we have many openings on our committees, boards, commissions, and like I said, challenge you to apply for those. That if we're going to be inclusive, and we've got to be reflective of the community, and that needs to also be included in our boards and commissions and committees. And so I challenge you to come join one of those or two, and get involved. Take a look at policies. Take a look at the municipal code. And be part of the solution, not just stand on the sidelines and voice a concern, but get involved.
Thank you. Councilor Tracy?
I thank Councilor Reisner for what he just said. I think that makes us a more inclusive city. Thank you, Councilor Reisner. I agree with you. I think everybody needs to be involved. I have no further, only to ask that I know that there were some folks who didn't want to speak on this, but did want to have their name in support of the resolution. To staff, I asked, are you going to just put names in memorial, or will you read names of support? Either way, I believe they had voiced their opinion as well. Am I correct about that, staff?
Normally we don't read stuff like that. Normally what would happen is someone would submit a letter and then a lot of people would sign it in support. That's normally how it's done or has been done in the past. I say that we just submit it as part of the record. I don't know how you all feel about that.
I'm fine either way.
I agree with the mayor.
Memorial, that's fine. But that's something that I was asking.
Okay. So any other discussion? Would someone like to make a motion then?
Sure, Mayor, I'll make a motion. I'd like
All
to
right.
make a motion to approve Resolution 1184, condemning violence and racism directed at Black, African Americans, and all people of color, and affirming the City of Gladstone's commitment to equity.
I'll second.
Okay, well, I want to make sure that you state that it is the amended version that we're talking about, not the version that's in our packet.
Correct. So it is the amended version. Thank you for that. This friendly amendment. I will restate then. I make a motion to approve the amended Resolution 1184, condemning violence and racism directed at Black, African Americans, and all people of color, and affirming the City of Gladstone's commitment to equity.
And I'll second again.
Okay, motion was made by Councilor Tracy, seconded by Councilor Todd. Any further discussion?
One comment, if I may, Mayor,
Yes.
that as Councilor Todd mentioned, about, and as action, these are only words on paper. And as Councilor Tracy mentioned, and others, that start January, we're going to have a new council, going to be making decisions or plan in January, as Administrator Betts mentioned. And it's got to, like I say, if there's no involvement from the community of color, then all this is for naught. And so I personally, I think it's very harsh language, and for a community that, and yeah, hey, I'll say it at least once a month in my government class that I teach in high school, that I'm a privileged white guy. And we the people back 200 plus years ago were privileged white guys. And that, thank God it has changed over the last 240, 50 years, but it hasn't changed enough in my mind. But I think that this wording is too harsh for me so I can't approve it. But at the same time, I do not like, as what was mentioned earlier, people driving down the street calling names. But unfortunately, we can't regulate thought. We can't regulate, in most cases, what people say as a city. We just regulate action, which I do appreciate the community coming around Happy Rock, Cafe when the window was broken out. That's a crime, and action needs to be taken against whoever does that. But it's unfortunate that if your neighbor doesn't like you because you're a woman, or you're a man, or your color, your skin, or your religion, we can't regulate that. But as mentioned, the city has taken steps where we can for training of our staff and some of the elected officials. And I feel that needs to continue. So, thank you.
All right, anything else? I don't see any hands, so motion's been made and seconded. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Todd.
Yes.
Councilor Mercero.
Aye.
Councilor Ripley.
Yes.
Councilor Neese.
Yes.
Councilor Tracy.
Aye.
Councilor Reisner.
No.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, Resolution 1184, the amended version has passed. Thank you, everybody. All right, item number 10 is the city attorney performance evaluation process. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is brought before you tonight through several discussions on agenda items for the last year. Most recently in July, the Gladstone City Council discussed doing a request for proposals for city attorney services. Like I mentioned, it's been discussed for several times the last couple of years. But in July, it was the consensus of the City Council that they would prefer to conduct a performance evaluation on the current city attorney to try to improve the relationship instead of issuing an RFP. Staff's had some time to research what other cities do in regards to evaluating the city attorney, and you have 3 examples in your packet. I think all 3 are very good. It's just really down to what your preference style is on how that you like to evaluate people. Some like to mark boxes and some like to leave comments. But I think they all strengthen the relationship between the council and legal counsel. You guys have discussed wanting to make sure that the city attorney, the city administrator, and the judge are evaluated at least once in a 4-year period, which is consistent with the charter. And so you have an opportunity tonight to review these samples. And then I would suggest that another topic at our retreat in January would be to discuss when you want to set an evaluation date of the city attorney. You're going to have 3 new elected officials starting in January, so it really doesn't make sense to do it in the first part of 2021 because they will just be establishing a relationship, but it may be that you resolve to at least complete 1 evaluation in 2021 so that we can formalize the process and really try to improve that relationship with the city attorney. So the samples are in your packet. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help. Otherwise, it would be good to have some direction back from the city council on if you have a preference.
My concern was what City Administrator Betts had brought up is with the new council, and even with some of them that are sitting there now, we haven't had a whole lot of experience with the city attorney, very limited, and then with COVID, it's even less. So having it in the beginning of the year it's not going to work. We're going to have to push it out to at least the middle of 2021 and maybe even the end of 2021 because this COVID stuff's going to be around for a while. Have all of you had a chance to look through the 3 samples? All right, so any questions for staff? Councilor Mercero?
No questions at this time.
Okay, Councilor Neese?
No, I have none.
Councilor Ripley?
I don't have any questions.
Councilor Todd?
I know that this is specifically about the city attorney, but we had talked about the city judge as well. How does one rate the city judge? I don't get a chance to interact with her or see her work, or I mean, I'm trying to figure out, like, if we were going to do this, if we didn't do the city attorney's office until maybe late 2021, we're not able to go into the courtroom at this time, or so it just I'm trying to figure out when that would happen.
So you're asking about a judge evaluation, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
A judge is currently on a 2-year contract.
Okay.
She will have 1 more year. She's been with the organization for a long period of time. And I think another topic for our strategic planning is, yes, typically city councilors are able to come and observe in the court, and COVID has changed that this past year. Again, with the new elected officials coming on, there is an opportunity that we will be able to set up a camera in our conference room so that if you wanted to come to City Hall and observe, you could do that in our conference room to watch her court proceedings going on there. I think that we should be scheduling the elected officials at least once a month and rotating you to observe court. I think it's quite fascinating to do that. So yes, I think you also need to establish a separate process for the judge set aside from the city attorney. And I think that we can accomplish that all in 2021. It just probably won't be in the first quarter of the year.
Right, okay.
All right, Councilor Reisner.
Being that I've only got a month and a half left on council, I'm going to defer on this discussion. Leave it to the others, and I'm hoping that our councilors elect get an opportunity to chime in also, maybe to administrative bets as to what they think would be appropriate form to use.
Okay, Councilor Tracy.
No questions at this time. I've looked over the evaluation forms. They look perfectly fine for me. Thanks.
Okay. Jackie, so do you want us to choose which format you want, or do you want us to just wait and do that in January? I know I have a preference.
You do have a preference?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Yes, if you don't have a preference, that's great. If you do, then I would like to hear that. Otherwise, I will select one that you use. So any input you provide would be helpful.
I like number 2 because it's simple. It's a 1 to 5, and it gives a lot of detail on what we need to be evaluating on. Sample 1 is just, I think, a little bit, I don't think it's deep enough. And then 3, I thought it's too much comment, which I don't think people are going to sit down and do. I think the 1 through 5 format is going to be easier, and it's easier to score, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Anybody else? Councilor Tracy.
Yeah, so Mayor, though I agree that it is detailed, it is a weight sampling matrix. By that I mean that it's weighted. So I would encourage that comments B, if we do go with sample 2, I would encourage that the council do write comments because a lot of detail can be lost in a 1 to 5 weighted matrix. Or
There is comment section in there also, so we do have that.
With just the emphasis being that we should talk about the issues and not just do criteria weighted matrix to evaluate the attorney.
All right, Councilor Mercero.
We have, as the council has, over the past years I've been involved, went over the same type of forms and have generally, if I can remember right, we've changed the format quite often. I'll put it that way. And I believe some of the new council people need to be involved with this. As far as whether you should have a form or not, I believe you do need one. But it needs to be worked with all the counselors into how the form should look, I believe. Otherwise, it will be changed again. Thank you.
Okay. So you think we should wait until January till the new counselors come on and then work through it?
That would certainly be an option.
Okay, Counselor Neese?
I think you should wait until the new council comes on because they're going to have a different perspective and look at things differently. And because we have changed this numerous times and we all were never in total agreement on the city attorney. And I think we have an excellent group of attorneys representing us and they do a very good job. So I would just say, let's let the new the council for 2021 make these decisions.
All right, Counselor Ripley?
I agree with Linda on that. I think waiting until the new group is in would be the best deal.
All right, Counselor Todd?
Since we're not going to move forward with it at the very start of the year, there's no reason to not wait that I can see. I like one or two, but it's definitely worth talking about with the new counselors coming in.
Okay. I know you said you're not going to say anything, Counselor Reisner, but waiting is fine with you? Yes?
That would be my suggestion, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Counselor Tracy, is that all right with you as well? Okay, so I think that's consensus. We'll just wait till January for that one. All right. Well, since we have the attorney there, David, do you have any comments or, I mean, is that all right with you?
Gotta unmute, takes a while. Thank you, Mayor. No, absolutely. I think this is, if ever a time where I would defer to the council on how it wants to proceed. I certainly think waiting and having that discussion, given that you do have some new council members coming, makes good sense. So it's certainly fine by me.
Okay, thank you. All right, well then those are all of the regular agenda items. Next is business carried forward. Do we have anything?
I have nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, and then the next is business from the audience. And it looks like we have 2 people. And again, remind them that it's 3 minutes. So Tammy, could you call them forward, please?
First is Angela Riley.
Hi, I'm commenting on a recent Facebook post called The Hateful Eight. And it was so ridiculous. It's too ridiculous and cringy to actually read aloud, but I would like it to be addressed in council. A person who doesn't live here, but's an immediate family member of one of you, council members, create a false account on social media using your home address and using full names and occupations of many citizens and council members. They slandered and lied in a threatening way about each person and accused them of serious crimes and other false claims that caused some of them to actually be endangered. They created multiple hate speech posts about what they called the Hateful Eight and appealed to their friends to help them with Gladstone's problem. It was really creepy. And I want to know how the council plans to address this and move forward, because a close family member used your personal information and knowledge they learned from you to slander and interfere with our town and even our local election, and suggested to her friends that they do another drive-through Gladstone. People who don't live here. I'm going to be sending in copies of the post to everyone for reference. But I want to know, does the city council endorse public hate speech and threats done from within the council like this? How can we curb this kind of behavior? And why didn't the family member of this person contact their family member to stop and remove their posts? Why didn't you even acknowledge or condemn what was going on and what was happening, as you should have done when it was happening? And how can we move forward from this for the sake of the community? How can we recover an inclusive environment in our city with the citizens after that? We asked for an apology and a condemnation of these kind of posts and the association to your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Kelly Monahan.
Hi there. I actually forgot to include in my email requesting time to speak that I was going to speak in support of Resolution 1184. But since it's already passed, I would like to say that it's important to me because my neighbors are important to me, and my future neighbors are important to me. I've heard from my neighbors. I've heard about what they're going through, and I appreciate the steps we're taking forward to make our town more friendly, more inclusive, more real. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next is business from the council. So we'll start with Councilor Mercero.
I would just like to thank the department heads for your monthly reports and constant improvement of those reports over the last years at least. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Neese.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councilor Ripley.
The only thing I have is I missed this last traffic safety meeting, and there's actually something I want to talk to John about with there on that. I was talking to one of my neighbors 4 blocks away a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how the speed really increased on Gloucester. And while he's talking to me, we had 2 cars go by probably 50 miles an hour down Gloucester, and it was kind of comical. We were just talking about it, but some reason, I know we see you guys around here quite a bit, but I don't know if we need to move the radar trailer down there so we can keep track how fast cars are going, or we need to do something because it's getting pretty crazy down here. That's all I got. And
I
that's all
think it's been, haven't they had the radar trailer on Gloucester recently, Chief Schwerber? I thought I've seen it.
It's been more on Dartmouth, but we've had
Dartmouth, okay.
We've had patrols quite a bit on both Gloucester and Dartmouth, and actually Arlington, and about 20 other streets that are high rollers. So we'll continue to work on it and get strategies going for Gloucester.
I know I see you guys out there quite a bit, but you guys' timing and the driver's timings don't quite correlate very well to slow them down. They must know when you're there or something.
All right, thank you. Councilor Todd.
I just want to tell everybody to stay safe and stay home. But we're going to go through a little bit of time where we're not going to be able to be out and about as much as we have been recently, and we need to take that very seriously. I also want to thank Anissa Hartman for hosting a Zoom meeting. She had some questions about the how many committees we need. We have so much need for volunteers right now, and I just wanted to thank her for hosting that and getting information together, and then inviting myself and some other people to come and answer questions. And I hope that we really can get some new faces and some diversity and new people, and it's exactly what's needed right now. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Reisner.
I agree with you, Councilor Todd. We do need new faces and stuff. Thank you. And in that regard, I want to congratulate Council-elect Anissa Hartman, Greg Alexander, and Mindy Garlington. Going to be joining the council come January. And I didn't realize it, and I want to thank Michael Milch, mentioned it last week in the library meeting, that probably for the first time in Gladstone city history, with 109 years, that we're going to have a majority female council. And it didn't dawn on me until he mentioned that last week in the library meeting. So that's, I think, personally exciting. And also for our city attorney, I don't know if get a chance to, in this setting, say, see you, because Chad usually is sitting in your spot, but I've only got one more meeting to go. So I didn't know if you'd be back next month, but it's been a pleasure knowing you over these years, and consider you a friend from Northeast Portland, and go Generals, and
Lou.
and all that good stuff. And just thank you. Like I say, I would say, consider you a friend, and we haven't always agreed on things, seen eye to eye, but we've always done it, amicably, and sometimes agreed to disagree and move on. But David, thank you for, shoot, you go back before the current, back when you were with, oh shoot,
Jack.
Yeah, Jack, back in the 90s. So just thank you for all your years being around, along with Tammy Bannock. Thank you for putting things together, for the library, and all you do for the city too. And just want to shout out, be safe and happy Thanksgiving. Things are still being interesting, and so take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Tracy.
First, I'd like to give some acknowledgement to all of our directors, Chief Schmerber, Chief Huffman, Director Wynot, and Colin, and anybody I missed. You guys do a fantastic job for this city. I think the citizens of this city are really lucky to have you, to be frank. I work with a lot of cities in the region. We have a staff and director, senior leadership that pays a lot of attention to what's going on the ground, and I really appreciate that, especially in times like these. I'd like to leave on a positive note, but unfortunately I can't. The Hateful Eight post was not just hateful in its own right, it was stupid. It's the type of leadership that, quite frankly, embarrasses me, and I know that it has some roots here. We need to talk. The city council needs to talk, whether it's an executive session or what have you. Nobody gets to storm out of the room. You're not going to like some of the things that we have to say. I don't often like some of the things other people on the council have to say, but we have to talk, because what was said in that post about one of our newly elected councilors was absolutely abhorrent and just unbelievable. And there is a line, and somebody went over that line, and I'm pissed about it. And so I want us to talk. I hope that staff can help us with this. We need to probably get a mediator in the room, but frankly, that was absolutely uncalled for and stupid. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
I have a question on that. Some of us have no idea what you're talking about, so it would be nice to have an explanation, because we're blindsided here and have no idea.
I'm sure it'll be daylighted. Understood.
And I'm not so sure that this is a council problem. I mean, because as Council Anissa, I don't know what's going on, but at the same time, we're here sitting to make policy and help direct the city. We're not here for to direct the public.
I was understanding that it had been shared with council, so I stand corrected. I think it should be shared with council, and I think it should be part of a discussion in the future.
Well, would we have that at our next council meeting in December?
Possibly.
Okay, because I mean, seriously, yes, it does need to be shared, because I think there's some of us that are not aware of what is even been said or what's going on.
By mistake, and that's part of this disjointed communication that we often have. So I'm sorry about that. I think, other people know what's going on, but absolutely, council should be made aware. I guess I didn't realize they hadn't been.
Well, and I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, next month I was going to say some things, but we have been disjointed. I totally agree with you. And this council has not been very good with communicating. And because of everything that's been done to us in the past and how we've been treated, always being accused of things that we're not doing. And it's really sad that we're in this situation where we have no communication amongst each other. It really is. And I'm sorry that this has happened to us because we have a great group of people on this council, whether people realize it or not. We've gone different directions, yes, but I think there's quite a few of us that have a lot of respect for one another and have feelings for each other. And it's too bad that we are in this situation. But I would like to, before I get involved in this, and I agree a little bit, Councilor Reisner, with what you said, but if it's something that needs to be looked at and addressed, we as the council should, because we need to set a precedence.
Thank you, Councilor Dees.
All right, thank you. So I'm last. First, the food pantry is going through some major changes right now. There's some new COVID safety restrictions. We lost our director. We lost a significant number of our volunteers, and we may have to move. So we've had to postpone our Thursday drive-up deliveries for the month of November. We're trying to come up with a way that we can serve people the week of Thanksgiving, but with the new Clackamas County pause that's been put in place, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. Again, we have to keep everybody safe. That's our #1 goal, and that's both for our volunteers and for the clients that we serve. So it's changing constantly. We don't know what that's going to look like. We are, however, going to continue serving with a very skeleton crew our homebound seniors. We're also now helping create bags of groceries for about 100 families in Gladstone that are under COVID quarantine and not allowed to leave their homes. And then we're also helping with some of the GCCF programs, providing bag groceries for them as well. So as soon as we have a plan to move forward, I'll let everybody know. But I think the biggest thing right now is that we need volunteers desperately. And then we also need donations. Donations are very slim right now. So anything that anybody can do to help would be great. The Clackamas County Coordinating Committee's focus this last meeting was on the funding gap since Metro's transportation bond did not pass. There are a ton of projects that need to be done, and now we don't have any money. So trying to strategize how we can put all of the little bits of resources that we have behind one big project, if that's the right path forward, or do we put Band-Aids on a bunch of little projects? We're not quite sure, so that we're at the very beginnings of that conversation. Parks and Rec Board meeting last night focused on the preferred concept for the Gladstone Nature Park site plan. Most of the councilors were there, some were not. It's going to come before council in December for a final vote and implementation. The Parks and Rec Board is going to start using that site plan to create their projects work plan for the next couple of years. Recently, I had the opportunity to tour the new children's course facility. It is incredible. Oh my gosh, the work that they do down there, and I don't think that all of you have any idea what their program actually is. Their first T program is mentoring the children in, I think mostly it's the mobile home park right now, but they're going to be expanding to some of the low-income apartment complexes. They bring these kids in, partner them with mentors. They help them with school. They help them with golfing if they want to golf. They help create really good people. And the folks are just amazing. They need mentors. They need anything they can get right now, but if you have the opportunity, please go as soon as occupancy has been achieved. Go down and tour the facility. It's amazing. Yesterday afternoon, the mayors and the county commissioners had a Zoom meeting with the governor on now being included in this 2-week pause with 8 other counties, Washington County, Multnomah, and us, and then others. And I don't know if everybody knows what that pause means. but it's basically where businesses are being urged to have their employees work from home again. They're pausing visits to long-term care facilities, reducing the maximum occupancy in restaurants to 50, and that's to include both customers and staff. You're reducing the number of your groups in a restaurant to 6 or less. You are supposed to have groups only in your home, and if it's outside of your home, maximum of 6. And they want you to keep that same 6 people for the full 2 weeks so that you're not expanding your social circle. They want it to keep it pretty tight. If we can't reduce or slow down the COVID numbers in the next 2 weeks, which may be difficult because we're now starting to see the Halloween numbers come in, she is fully prepared to lock us down starting the week of Thanksgiving. So we need to all step up and spread the word that this is only 2 weeks and we need to do whatever we can to slow those numbers down. So wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance. If you have symptoms, stay home, and please spread the word. So I know the counselors all kind of gave us a brief update on what they had going on. Are there any other liaison comments that need to be made? Counselor Mercero?
No comment.
Nothing going on, Counselor Neese?
No.
Counselor Ripley, you kind of said a little bit about traffic. Anything else?
No, not this time.
Counselor Todd?
No, I didn't end up being able to attend the school district meeting. It's always the day after our meeting on a Wednesday. And that's one of my normal work nights. So sometimes it doesn't happen. So I'll try and do that this next time.
Okay, Counselor Reisner?
Well, since we kind of took care of the library board tonight, don't have anything to do in the future, at least for the next month or so. No, like I say, the staff and our volunteers have just been awesome over the years. We wouldn't have the great library that we have if it wasn't for them and the support of everybody that's out there. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Tracy?
No, water plant's running fine. I don't think that they encountered any problems with the burn scar or the runoff from the burn scars from the fires. I think everything's been good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm going to end on a good note. We have a local celebrity that just reached a major milestone by turning 100 years old. And I don't know, I'm aging myself by saying that I grew up watching Geneva Jones cook on AM Northwest, and she was amazing. She was one of those cooks that just made you feel at home and inspired you to get in that kitchen and start cooking. So she just turned 100. I wish we could have a big party to celebrate that, but unfortunately we can't. But we did have a certificate made for her to celebrate her milestone, and I will make sure that she gets this as soon as possible. So if you see her or know her or can send her a note, please wish her a happy birthday. So that's all I have. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I so move. I'll second.
Do I have a second?
Sure.
Motion was made by Counselor Tracy, seconded by Counselor Reisner. Do we have any further discussion? Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Mercero,
Aye.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Aye.
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Thank you, everybody.